Hi, and welcome to this live reading from The Uncrowned King by Ayla Marie, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Leo. I'd thought that escaping weight would mean no more captivity, no more cages or chains. I was wrong. When Bern, Kale, the kids, and I met Emrys in the woods after making it across the river, he quietly led us intoIllena's capital city and hid us in an old shed between two short buildings. As he warned us against leaving until he returned, I questioned whether I should have trusted him. About an hour later, 4 soldiers, clad in black and sporting solid red masks that cover from their chins to just under their eyes, barge in, kicking down the shed door. The first thing I notice is the double-headed dog crest stitched over their hearts. I don't know what it is, but it feels familiar. The second thing I notice is that every one of the soldiers carries enough weaponry to supply an armory, and not one of them stops at the door. Without thinking, I step in front of Safe, Bern, Kale, and the boys sitting on the ground and pull a dagger into each hand. The soldiers don't speak, leaping for me like a cat attacking a cornered mouse. The shed is small, but there's enough space to move strategically. I pull the first masked guard toward me as he spins and swings his dagger in a deadly arc, narrowly missing my face. I duck under his arms and stab my dagger at his chest, but the armor around his torso doesn't budge. My eyes meet his as his head tilts curiously. I push him back and kick, hitting him right where the dagger had been. He stumbles and falls through the wall as if it were made of parchment. The shed groans as another soldier sweeps through the door. Kale steps in front of me and grabs the man's arm. Kale pulls him to the side and throws his elbow at the guard's head, sending him sprawling into the opposite wall. Bird holds Safe tightly and pushes Antares behind her. As another soldier steps inside, I raise my weapons, preparing myself for the next attack. She never gets the chance, suddenly jerked back by the collar. Emrys bursts into the shed with his empty hands raised. His chest heaves as sweat drips down his face. He must have sprinted back. Stop! Kale and I refuse to move. Though Emrys's expression softens as he looks at Bern, his jaw remains tight with resolve. Emrys catches my gaze pleadingly before looking at Bern and holding his palms up as if he were praying. Her lips are thin as she closes her eyes and takes a breath. Bern shifts Safe onto her hip and puts her hand on Kale's shoulder. The tension lining his face disappears as he exhales. I look at Kale. For a moment, I don't think he's going to back down. I don't want him to, but this is the first step toward leaving behind Tomine and Wait, to leaving behind the mercenary Ayla created. Kale nods slowly, and I sheath my blades. Emrys watches me like a hawk as I raise my hands. Don't fight back, Emrys whispers. There's an apology written in his words. Then Emrys steps aside, allowing 2 guards carrying chains with thick iron cuffs forward. Kale lurches back against the wall as fear flashes in his eyes. You won't chain us, I say as I stare down the partially masked guards. Recognition flashes across their eyes before they exchange quick glances. Emrys clears his throat and looks away. The chains are only for you. The royals don't believe you're the crown princess I've claimed, and though I tried to convince them, it is a crime to impersonate a member of the royal family. My eyes narrow into slits as I stare at him. Lie on your stomach and let them cuff you, Emrys says. When they realize that I've told no lies, they'll release you. It will only be until they're sure. I shake my head slowly as my hands hang back slack at my sides. I look behind me as Safe buries her head in Bern's shoulder. Antares slides over to stand behind Kale while Alter stays frozen in the corner, surveying the room with cold, sharp eyes. Forcing myself to breathe, I slowly drop to my knees and raise my hands. A soldier sidesteps Emrys and moves to stand at my back. She grabs my hand, and instead of cupping it as I thought she would, she presses her knee into my back and pushes me to the ground. I grind my teeth and turn my face to the side as she clasps the cuffs on my wrists, then another set on my ankles. At least she allows me to keep my weapons, though they're useless when I'm bound in this position. Nevertheless, my mind runs through every way I could gut them and run. I'm not helpless. I will never be helpless again. It takes everything in me not to kick her off my back, my muscles straining as my mind roars to break free. I can see Kale struggling to stay back as he glares at Emerus with clenched fists, but Kale doesn't make a move to help me. Kale knows, as I do, that this is our chance, and we can't afford to mess it up. I've been lying on the ground for over an hour. Kale and Antares have joined me, their legs still too tired to keep them upright. Hunters took a physical toll we hadn't expected, and the exhaustion is pulling us down. The soldiers vacated the shed minutes after chaining me. Emerus explained that their presence put everyone ill at ease, and although he was right, I couldn't help the anger that flared inside me at his words. I won't forget about this little affair. Emerus, Byrne, and Alter are the only three standing. Alter has yet to move from his corner, his chin held high as his eyes move over us. Something in me can't stand to look at him. The boy I raised is nowhere in his eyes, but foolishly I still hope my brother is buried deep in the layers of his mind. Altair meets my gaze. His expression is cold and it bites at my soul. I can't help feeling guilty for the person he has become. Had I not brought him to wait, he might still be the witty kid who loved to climb trees and try to outsmart us. I shake away the thought as I avert my eyes. That isn't the grave I can afford to dig up right now. Byrne and Emerus stand together against the wall tucked into the corner. They're completely hidden from view of anyone outside. Byrne doesn't waste time filling Emerus in on everything that's happened. I grit my teeth as sympathy falls over his face. I don't want his pity. I want my brother back. I want a chance at Cassian. I want Illena here. I close my eyes when Byrne mutters her name. The memories of Ilena's face and Cass's last moments replay in a loop in my head. Oh, I feel as if I'm going to vomit. Cass was so good, too good to have lived the life he did. He deserved better. After so much suffering, Cass should have had a proper burial beside his twin, but I couldn't even give him that. Leo. I look up as Kale stares at the door. He pulls himself up and places a hand on Antares' shoulder to keep our younger brother behind him. I turn my head to follow Kale's gaze. An old, withered woman stands in the doorway. Her extensively embroidered red and silver gown is strikingly out of place beside the partially shattered walls of the shed. My jaw drops as I catch sight of the ruby tiara interwoven in her silver hair. I don't think I've ever seen so many jewels. One of those gems could feed a family for a lifetime. My gaze lowers to her face and my heart stops beating altogether. The shape of her face is a reflection of my own, and her eyes, they're the mirror image of mine. The old woman's mouth drops open as she stares at me. Show me, she orders. Though the words are not loud, they demand a presence in the room. Whoever she is, this woman is powerful. One of the soldiers steps through the door and frees my limbs from their cuffs. Stand. I do as she demands, never breaking eye contact. The soldier who released me reaches to grab my wrist, but I step away and take hold of the soldier's arm, pinning it behind her back. I pull a dagger from the sheath at my thigh and hold it to her throat as Kale steps to my side. You won't touch us anymore, I seethe. My chest constricts as the soldier in my grasp swallows hard. Laughter booms from outside the shed, startling me. A man, maybe a few years my elder, smirks as he watches us from behind the old, bejeweled woman. I hadn't seen him get so close. He, too, wears a crown, though significantly less extravagant. The ornamental suit he wears is stitched with the same red crest over his heart, depicting the dog with two heads. His build is much like mine, but that is where our physical similarities end. His hair is jet black and immaculately styled, and his monolid eyes are a darker shade of silver than my own. Ares, that is enough, the woman spits. Ares, as she called him, wipes the mischievous smile from his face and bows his head. My apologies, Your Highness. I meant no disrespect. He raises his eyes back to me, back to us. There's a glint of recognition behind them as his words click in my mind. Your Highness. I stare at the woman as my surroundings seem to become infinitely more real. Emerus said I was the son of a prince, but I hadn't truly processed what that meant. I thought maybe I had a faraway ancestor with royal ties and hoped it would be enough to plead for refuge. But this woman standing steps away is a queen. Let my soldier go, the old queen orders, her voice softer than it had been. Her head tilts to the side as she watches me with furrowed brows. Her eyes search my face as though they're looking for some kind of sign, an inkling of truth behind the story she's been told. I take a breath and force my arms away from the soldier. She quickly steps out of the shed and takes her place behind the old queen. Show me your wrist. The old queen's voice is barely above a whisper, her resolve clearly wavering. Tension rises around us as I raise my arm, still flecked with dried blood from weight. I show her the two bands that circle my wrist and encase the digits printed into my skin. 43201006. They're the numbers that connect me to my lineage. The first three digits are inherited from my mother, the last three would be identical to my father's, and the middle two tell of my birth order. I was the first and only child my parents were given the chance to have. Before I have time to dwell on how I came to be, Ares steps forward and raises his arm next to mine. The air around us becomes electric as we stare at the digits. The band on Ares's arm is below the numbers etched into his skin, marking him as a pure blood eye, but that isn't where the queen's eyes focus. Though the first 5 numbers on his wrist are far from mine, the last 3 digits are identical. 006. Everyone remains still as my gaze slowly rises to meet the old queen's. The tension bracketing her face melts away as the barest smile graces her lips. You've come back,